All right, real talk for a second. If you're a physical therapist or running a clinic, you already wear like 50 hats a day. Clinician, manager, scheduler, part-time tech support. I see you. But what if you had a sidekick that could help you do all of that? Something smarter. That's where Empower EMR by MW Therapy comes in. It's built just for physical therapists, and it's loaded with smart automations and AI that help you grow your practice without burning out. No more chasing paper trails or fighting outdated systems. This thing handles billing, scheduling, documentation, patient engagement, all in one clean, customizable platform. The best part? It's actually affordable and scales as you grow. Clinics everywhere are loving it, and if you're ready to take the stress off your plate and be the hero of your practice again, check out a free demo at mwtherapy.com.
I wasn't really teasing it, but since you said so, I've just rebranded under the 6 Hour CEO. So the idea is you run your multi-million-dollar practice or business in 6 hours a week, or as few as 6 hours a week, and that's real. That's not some kind of pie in the sky claim. I did this. I had a 6-location 40 plus person employee team that I essentially ran on 6 to 8 hours a week.
Sturdy's back on the show. Sturdy, welcome back, man. Appreciate your time. I always like the fact that we are like very different in terms of personality. Like I can't calm down.
Really?
And I feel like you're very, I feel like your name works, like Sturdy, feels like solid, steady, where Jimmy's, I'm like look, a squirrel, like that's me. I feel like you're not like that.
No, I try to be more focused, man, but it's,
I try to be more focused too. It just doesn't work as well.
Yeah, but dude, I've had a lot more time to work on it.
That's good. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So yeah, but that's something I certainly learned in running my businesses and all was slow down,
focus,
listen, gather the information, because my tendency is, ready, fire, aim. And that doesn't always work that well.
Okay. Well, that's going to sort of play into today's conversation, or part of it. Let's start with a spicy one then. We were talking about this just before we hit record. I wanted to make sure we capture it. You say marketing is being oversold as the answer to every PT problem. And I'm like a, kind of a semi-marketing guy. But I agree with you. Why do you think that that's happening?
Well, the why of it's really easy, but let's come back to that in 1 second. This is a quote from Dave Reed at Origin Rehab. We just had one phone call, okay? And after the phone call, he wrote this on Facebook. I'm seeing the concept of coaching in the PT space being conflated with marketing guidance and or training. I appreciate Sturdy didn't accept this premise, which I didn't realize I had. Instead, he let the numbers tell the story and direct me to a solution hiding in my blind spot, very large blind spot. And this was the best value minute per minute business, whatever. So, he was nice and complimentary about it. But the thing was, I hadn't thought of it that way that he positioned it, of the coaching space being, marketing being conflated, whereas, a coach ought to be working and figuring out, like a therapist, you need to go in and diagnose what's going on. You need to figure out the problem. They don't come in. It's like you go to a party, Jimmy, and somebody says, "What do you do?" And I'm a PT. I go, "Oh, what do you do for back pain?" Like, I don't know. Depends on what the cause is, what happened. You've got to peel back the onion and figure that out. To answer your question directly, though, it's two answers. One is, if you're selling hammers, everything's a nail, right? And the other one is you can make money off of it. So like I'm working with a client right now, we're doing like a 6-month project on physician referral marketing. That contract's going to end, right? Because at the end of the 6 months, they're going to have systems and processes in place. They're going to be able to turn it on, turn it off. They're going to be able to keep going. It's kind of like PT. I'm going to discharge them, right? Now they may come back with another challenge or another issue later that we can then work through, what have you. But, that's not a recurring revenue model that works out there in the world. Does that make sense? If I sell you Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever, then I can keep charging you for that forevermore.
Sure. I mean, not to point at professions, but like that's sort of a PT model, which is, I should be working myself out of a job. We might have another profession like chiropractic, where some of them might say you need to see me twice a week for forever. That's a better business model in theory if your job is to pad your bank account.
Right. But, and this is the thing that really gets me. It really, and, chafes we can get into a lot of expletives here around it, but I feel like PTs are being taken advantage of. I feel like practice owners are being taken advantage of. And that's the thing that really, upsets me, to put it in proper, family friendly language.
Yeah.
But
all right. So how can a clinic owner know if marketing is really their core issue, or if the problem runs deeper? Like, what sign, if we're going to be PTs about it, what signs or symptoms should they look or feel for?
So that is an excellent question, and then you've got to go deeper. So the symptoms and what people approach, or people go out and buy marketing, is they have excess capacity, right? They have vacancy rates, census, cancel no-shows, which, by the way, are all kind of terminology taken from the hospital systems and what have you. And we all have different definitions of what all those things mean. I saw a Facebook group this past week where somebody's like, what percent of productivity should you expect? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I want to, and they were like 85. And I'm like, 85% of what?
Yeah,
and
I saw this exchange.
And it's all a mess, right? I had a client that was like, just yesterday we were looking through, and by the way, by doing it this way, they thought maybe that they had a vacancy rate. They had, 85, 86% of their scheduled time was actually patients being seen, whatever. And that was a problem, because in their EMR, I won't name names, but it rhymes with, I don't know, it rhymes with WebPT. So anyway, it gives them a percentage, but the percentage is of scheduled time with patients. So it kind of gives you not percent of capacity used, but percent of what you scheduled actually showing up, which is also kind of important, right? Because if they're not showing up, that's a problem. But what we did was we took it apart. They have 3 locations. I'm going to do a whole little anonymize this and go through the real numbers with on my YouTube. But we went through and looked at what their expected visits per case number is. In other words, are their patients finishing their plans of care? What their actual visits per case number was, what their capacity is given their number of FTE clinical staff, all that kind of stuff. So there's, it's a bunch of math, but we're looking at and setting up, they should be seeing, let's say 200 visits a month. We're just going to round numbers, right? And if they're seeing, if they're seeing, I'm saying 200 visits a month per FTE, per full-time equivalent employee, clinical staff, right? So per therapist, per PTA. And I'm rounding, it wasn't 200, but whatever. If it's $100 a visit and you're actually seeing 180 visits on average across 10 PTs, that's 20 visits a month times 10, that's 200 visits at $100, that's 20 grand a month that they have. And the point of this is, if we can fill those spots, they can realize the $20,000, that essentially all goes to the bottom line, because they're already spending on staff. They've already spent the money to be able to see those people. Now, the problem I see is a lot of, go ahead.
I was going to say that they've paid for the capacity, but are they utilizing? Are they seeing the ROI on it?
Totally. It's like having a pizza restaurant. You're paying for the pizza oven, but you're not using it, right? You've already got a sunk cost. Could you sell more pizzas if you could get the customers and stuff? Yeah, then we've got the capacity. We want a line out the door. We want a little bit of a wait list, maybe. But what again, their kind of initial thought was, do we need more new patients, or do we need to keep the patients we have, or, are they finishing? So there's way to compare the clinical decision-making and the plans of care to the actual numbers. And that, in their case, now we're going to go back and verify that the target visits per case number is actually accurate based on their population and their PTs and whatever. But closing that gap, what it looks like on the surface of it is they have the right number of new patients, people are dropping off. And now, since I just, put a shot across the bow for WebPT, let me give them credit on another thing. They did a survey, a survey in 2018. They haven't asked the question again, which does kind of bother me. But in the 2018 State of Rehab Therapy report that they created, right, with 7,000 therapists reporting, self-reported therapists were saying roughly 90% of the patients aren't finishing their plans of care. And
Wow.
when I first read that, as somebody who got a graduate degree in PT and ran PT practices and did all this to take care of patients and stuff, that's offensive to me. That's crazy. We're letting all those people down. And, even if you wanted to approach it from more of a mercenary kind of business standpoint, you don't care about letting them down. What's that doing to your brand? What are people in your community saying about you when 90% of them aren't finishing and getting across the finish line, aren't achieving their goals?
Wow.
It's that PT didn't work for me.
Right.
Right.
So to combat this, what do you suggest?
Well, I suggest mastering that ability to diagnose. One of the big mistakes I made long ago, and I still look back at this and just cringe. I did a talk at CSM of managing the KPIs, managing your metrics. The thing is, you don't manage your metrics, right? And so that whole premise, yeah, you already know where we're going.
Upstream.
Totally. But the whole premise was wrong, right? And meanwhile, I'm showing spreadsheets and all this stuff, 250 people in the room. I think I'm really cool and important. I look back at that and go, oh my God. So anyway, the idea is that the metrics are a result, right, of the processes you run, the plays you run, and the players. And I really like the team analogy for real. Like, I want the managers to be coaches. I want them to hold people accountable, but support people and push them and want the best for them and help them to succeed, because when the player wins, the team wins. And they come up with the strategies. A good coach knows how to put people in positions of success. A good coach knows what plays are going to work in different situations, or they at least they try them, test them, learn from it, and go on. And I see a lot of therapists not really, I'm talking about practice owners, not really knowing where to start. Like, they've got too many ideas, they've got a whole bunch of stuff in front of them, they're really good at taking care of patients. And if they would only, Jimmy, spend the same amount of time per week on their business that they do with a single patient, we're talking like an hour and a half, 2 hours a week on the business, it's night and day difference with what you can actually achieve and accomplish in the business.
And you're putting something together. Do you want to tease this? You're putting something together to be able to do that.
Oh, well, yeah, yes, that's what I've been doing for like the past 9 years. I just was very unsexy. Sturdy coaching wasn't so cool. Nobody knew what I did. And then when you explained all the operations and stuff, it lost its punch, right? Versus somebody who says, well, I can get you more new patients, right? Oh, okay, yeah, I need more new patients. Well, how about I help you keep more new patients? How about we operate, streamline, whatever. So yeah, I wasn't really teasing it, but since you said so, I've just rebranded under the 6 Hour CEO. So the idea is you run your multi-million-dollar practice or business in 6 hours a week, or as few as 6 hours a week. And that's real. That's not some kind of, pie in the sky claim. I did this. I had a 6 location, 40 plus person, employee team that I essentially ran on, 6 to 8 hours a week.
But they're the right things in the right 6 hours. Because everybody gets 40 hours a week, or you get 168 hours a week. But are we spinning? Well, there's that 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle, right? 80% of your efforts give you 20% of results, and that means 20% of your efforts give you 80% of results. What if you could actually focus on that 20% that brings you 80?
Right. And then you can delegate other stuff, and you get a lot of stuff off your plate, and you systematize, you create processes, you empower people to actually succeed in their positions, to do what they want to do in their jobs, to feel a sense of accomplishment rather than taking everything from you or from them. So two things. One is, it took me like 12, 13 years to get to that.
That's right.
So, well, yeah, and I had coaches, I had a lot of help, but it still took a long time to kind of get there. So what I'm trying to do is help people get there faster. Right. And that is kind of the thing. But, as far as that mindset though, Jimmy, is, like shifting, getting off the playing field a little bit. A lot of owners are going to sit there and go, well, I have to do it because my team doesn't know, or they can't, or I don't have the time to set up, or whatever. You don't not have the time, right? You have to start doing that, or you're going to drive yourself nuts. And one of the analogies I use with my clients is, imagine you're watching a little league game, and during the game, the coach is out there running around middle infield fielding balls.
Can't do that.
what would the parents say? You'd think he's crazy. Worse, what would those players think? Right? I'm not good enough at short or second.
Or
You
none of this
know,
is not, it's not my responsibility. He'll do it. And now I don't have any skin in the game, and I don't need to
totally
worry about that position. I'll go stand in right field.
right, right. And I mean, that's obviously not a way to run a baseball team, but people are doing it in their businesses all the time, like all the time.
Yep. All right. So a second ago, you said you were working with someone, 6 months plan. You were focused on physician marketing, but you've said physician marketing has gone out of style. Help us understand what's changed and what the old playbook maybe doesn't, how that doesn't work anymore. What is the new playbook for physician marketing? What's the right way to do it in 2025?
Well, I mean, that's what we're working on, Jimmy. Is all the blocking and tackling the right way to do it. But it's relation. If you go back and you really break it down, it's relationship marketing. So it's developing the relationships. It's not salesy. It's not pitching. It's not, you're building trust. You're building rapport. You're building credibility. You're doing that in a way that is interesting and engaging, and it has gone out of style, but I think a lot of it's because what we were talking about before. I can charge you every month for Facebook ads or Google ads, right? I can charge you an administrative fee, and then you spend money on that and all that. So I can make money by selling you that. If I sell you relationship marketing, at some point those relationships are yours,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need me anymore. So why would anybody in their right mind who isn't a PT like us in the background of making people independent, why would anybody design a business that way? So that's a big part of it. I mean, the playbook, though, it's still people. It has fallen out of fashion, but it still works.
Yeah.
And if you know one other thought here, where do most people go when they hurt their back? And just use back pain as an example.
Their doctor.
Like over 50% go to their primary care doc. Okay, everybody listening to this, all the PTs, what's the musculoskeletal training of a primary care physician, right? What do they do with them? They don't, you are an excellent resource for them. So what do they do with them? Well, they give them opiates, but that's also kind of that up and down, right?
Sure.
They might send PT. They generally will send them to the surgeon or the back specialist, orthopedist or somebody, right? Who doesn't really want to see them because they're not a surgical case. So they end up waiting 3 months or 6 weeks or whatever to get to see that person. I mean, if you've got capacity, if you need more new patients, go out and talk to some primary care docs. Go to urgent cares because they're not affected by people walking in off the street, and
Right.
ask them what they do with people with low back pain, and tell them when they start complaining about the ortho doc and the spine surgeon can't see them for 12 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever. Go, oh well, we can get them in the day after tomorrow. Oh, what do you
Solve
do?
their problem. Solve their problem.
Yeah,
I mean, I heard a great PT say his business model was essentially built on going to physicians who worked with older adults and said, I want your toughest cases, the cases that nobody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole. I'm going to
right.
over earn your trust. I'm going to work with those people. I'm going to do really great. Then you can send me the one everybody wants to work with, right? I'm going to overserve. If you go in there and you think I'm just going to buy everybody lunch and then patients show up and you're wondering why it
That
doesn't
doesn't
work, you're not solving anybody's problem. I mean, I know you're buying them lunch, but they're like that. Now it's a transaction and not a relationship.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And when it turns into transactional, it's
It
that
never
yeah, that
stops.
doesn't right. There's no flywheel that doesn't keep going. There's no respect, in that. You actually, the PTs are experts at what they do. Act like it.
Yeah,
You
please.
are an amazing resource, for these physicians and NPs and PAs and all of them out there who are going, I don't know what to do with the neck pain guy, you know? Yeah,
Tell them I will solve that. I would love to. That's why I went to school. Is I would love to solve that problem for you. If that person's not right for you and you need a resource, do that.
yeah, but and then the follow on is to keep that going. It's not just the relationship you've got to deliver for the patient. You've got to get them across
100%.
the finish. Yeah.
100%.
So I mean, if you don't have processes in place, this is another thing I see all the time. Like, you even talking to some smaller practice owners, that they have experience, they do all this stuff, they trust that the person with 3 years experience that they hire is already doing it, and they are not. And by doing it, I mean getting buy into the plan of care and following up and, reflecting the progress at each visit and the blocking and tackling stuff that keeps patients engaged.
Yep.
And we're not taught that in school, so where do we learn it? And if you're hiring people and you, by the way, when you started your business, you signed up to be the coach, whether you realize it or not.
They're going to look to you
right?
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I would want to focus on, visits per case, look at dropouts, compare those things before I started worrying about more new patients. And if you need help with it, get somebody to help you out. There are a few. There are a lot of people saying they can help you with it, but there are a few that really can. It's not just me. There are some other good people out there, but set up a call with a couple of these folks and see where it goes. Yeah. Because if on one phone call I can find 40,000 or 200, like yesterday's client call was $223,000, right, a year. Now that's 3 clinics and 10 clinical staff, but that's 20 grand per staff member.
Yeah, it's not small.
Right.
All right, let's say you did this. Let's say you lock those things down, and you do actually have a marketing problem, because I don't think you're saying marketing's never an issue. It can be, but it's not always the issue.
People in the pipeline.
Sure. So when is marketing the right answer, and what does good marketing actually look like in 2025 according to you?
Well, okay, so everybody, if you ask most practice owners, what's your most powerful marketing channel? What do you think they tell you?
Referrals. I think they would say word of mouth, referrals, one of those two.
You got it. Referrals are simply leverage word of mouth.
Okay.
So yeah, word of mouth, right? Your patients are telling other people, your patients are telling their doctor. The reason, going back to like the primary care docs, statistically, something like 25-30% of their caseload is musculoskeletal, right? Again, what's the level of training they have? How confident, how comfortable are they with that population? Can you imagine having a fourth of your customers coming to you where you weren't really expert at the thing that they need?
No. Right.
So that's a problem. That's a pain point. And that's something that every PT, whoever listens to this can go out and fix. They are a solution to that problem. But if that primary care doc even sends 2 patients a week, that's 100 a year, right? So that's one of the things in marketing. However, let's go back to the root of it all. If patients aren't finishing their plans of care, what's your word of mouth going to look like? Right?
Not great.
Yeah, not great. So it really, I think the secret, and once again, it's not something that I can sell you a subscription to, right? But is leveling up your customer experience, leveling up your patient experience. And you do that in a deliberate way. We have a process and method for assessing and scoring and looking at all the touch points and, really getting into it. But when you make that experience something special, and more people stick around and finish and have a great experience, not just the solution. And I saw a video yesterday. 59% of consumers are willing to pay more for a better experience, irrespective of the product, right? So if that's the case, and we're not focusing in on the customer experience, you're not taking advantage of the people that already know, love, and trust you. You're not, you need to over deliver for them. You need to make it something special. And there are ways to do that aren't heavy lifting, don't cost a lot of money. But when you create those processes, when you make that decision once and you figure it out, you solve for that, and then you make that a consistent process across all of your staff, all of your clinics, every patient, that's a game changer. And then that feeds into the relationship marketing, that feeds into the brand reputation, that feeds into the word of mouth. And by the way, it also feeds into the testimonials and stuff that you can then leverage in your social media and your advertising.
Here's the truth. You do the work, you care for patients, you fight through schedules, documentation, and the chaos of healthcare. So why shouldn't you get paid on time? That's where Athelis RCM comes in. It's billing, but smarter, AI-powered, fully automated, and it integrates with your existing EMR. It handles everything from claims to denials and revenue reports. It's like hiring an entire billing department without hiring an entire billing department. And providers are raving about how much time they get back. Not to mention 15 to 20% boost in collections. Not too shabby. So yeah, you can have fewer headaches and more money. Just book a demo at athelas.com. That's ATHELAS.com and see what your billing could look like when AI has your back. So you said something I've heard before, which is let's make sure people understand what game they're actually playing. Famously, the Four Seasons has a great trading program. Everybody on the Four Seasons hotel team understands what they do. They understand what position they play, if you want to go to a sports analogy, and what they're allowed and expected to actually do in terms of, and I forget the actual dollar values. I knew them once. If a visitor has a problem and you can solve it, let's just say they got ink on their pants and they just told you they have a job interview in 20 minutes. You're like, I'm going to buy this guy new pants as long as it's under $1,000, because they understand that it's not about the pants. It's about that guy's going to tell 150 people. He's going to tell everybody he can that, oh my God, I was going to lose this job interview because the ink. And then the janitor knew my job was make that person's, it wasn't just mop the floor.
Right.
My highest power job was make every person I lay eyes on who's under our roof have the best possible experience. That is, and Seth Godin taught me what this word meant, which was remarkable. That is a worthy of making a remark about. So your job as a physical therapist is anatomy, physiology, blah, 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 blah. Yep, that's mopping the floor. I'm very sorry. Those are table stakes. Remarkability is you are empowered to do all things necessary to make sure that person has the best experience. And here's the best part. They decide what the best experience is, not you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's exactly why. But there's so many things here, Jimmy. So Seth's challenge question on that with the remarkable, and I love it. And by the way, they spell it remark-able, right? It's able to be remarked about. Remarkable. Brilliant. Well, the challenge question I love was, your patients are going to go home and talk about three things tonight. How do you make it into the top three? What about their experience with you is going to be in the top three of all the stuff they encounter today?
It's a lot. We encounter a lot, man. We get hit. How do you make it in the top three?
Yeah.
It's not simple, not
Talking
easy.
about those TikTok videos instead of going to PT, right?
Yeah.
So you're not just competing in healthcare, right? You're competing for their attention. You're competing for that word of mouth. You're competing, on that plane of remarkability. But yeah, I absolutely, you bring up the Four Seasons. I had a job at 19 in Florida as a bartender. That's a whole nother story. But when Reagan changed the drinking age and all, they didn't change the serving age back then. So I was a bartender at 19 at a hotel, but we were told in initial training that no matter what a guest needs, you do it or you find somebody who can. So it didn't matter if they needed a towel at the pool and you're the bartender, you got them a towel, or connected them with somebody else who could give them a towel, but you handed them off directly. And once again, that was early training, like around that customer experience. What do we want to be known for? We want to be known for taking care of our guests. Okay, how do we do that? You can't tell me that's not deliberate and intentional, right? It didn't just happen. So it's that kind of intentionality and thoughtfulness. And those are the things that I'm talking about, like spending that 2 hours a week on your business and thinking about your business. You know why that's so important that you, the owner, think about your business? Is anybody else going to think about your business?
Nope. Not as much, not as deeply, not as energetically, not as important. No.
Yeah. I mean, you're it.
It's not going to happen.
Right?
Gary Vee was famous. There was a guy.
Sorry, there was a little lag. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, a little delay. Gary Vee was famous. A guy stood up and asked him a question. Hey, man, I can't find anybody to work for me. They just don't work as hard as me and this. And Gary flipped it around on him. He was like, my man, your job is to make their job awesome. Like your job is to work for them, your employees. Then their job is show up. No one is going to work as hard, as long, as intensely in your business. Why should they? It's your business. I'm going to do what is required, right? But when you get to empower people, and like your actual job here is make that customer happy. Yes, I need you to serve the drinks, but the higher power, the higher order thing is if they need a towel or if their kid lost their doll, stop everything, find the doll.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's you just said your job is to make that. You moved into the coach position, right? And when you're talking about like nobody's going to think about it as long. Nobody's going to. Who stays? You think about a football team, right? Or baseball, whatever, soccer manager. Who stays longer? Who's there before everybody? Who's there after everybody? It's the
Coach setting
coach,
up.
right? Yeah. So that, when you signed up to start a business, you signed up to be the head coach. So you need to be able to support your players to be the most successful they can be. In order to do that, by the way, they need clarity, right? So if you're not laying out very clearly what the expectations are, if you don't share with them the process, the recipes, the plays, how do they execute? How do they perform? And the other thing that you mentioned, we what we've done to operationalize that serving the frontline players is we develop the organizational chart, but then we flip it over. Patients are at the top, frontline employees are next because and it's not necessarily a hierarchy. There's a lot of tension there, and I think there should be, by the way, of who's more important. But making your frontline players successful will empower them, enable them to make the customers and the patients successful.
Sure,
Right.
100%.
Then the manager's jobs are to support those frontline players. And then your job is to support those managers, or if your team's small enough, the frontline players themselves.
And I guess you're probably going to say, don't skip steps. Like if you're the owner, your job is managers. If you're the manager, your job is frontline. If you're frontline, your job is patience.
Right. And so you've heard this a lot before, right? That, oh, I can't do that. I want to treat patients. I want to do. Well, the beauty of it all is if you do it well and you spend, so there might be some heavy lifting in the front end, right? But when you get it dialed in and you are able to do that on 6-8 hours a week, and each of your managers can manage the team on 8 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours a week or whatever, they have the rest of that time to do. You have that time to do with what you want. So if that's treat patients, then treat patients. If that's, go to coach Little League, do that. If it's to travel, do that. Whatever you want to do. Now that people, I heard this from somebody, they've been told, get this, Jimmy, they've got 2 other clinical staff and neither of them are full-time. So there's 2.2 FTEs if the owner's working essentially full-time in the practice, and they're being told by their coach and group they need to get out of patient treatment. Like, that's the wrong time, dude. They're supposed to be treating. Now they've got to spend some time managing and they budget that, but then they could be spending 36 hours a week, patient care, block, save, budget 4-6 hours or whatever to make sure everybody else is, running efficiently and supported and having what they need. But you don't get out of patient care completely until you've got kind of a critical mass. And I won't give a number because it depends entirely on what you want to make,
Sure.
and where your profit margin is and all that kind of stuff. But it ain't 3 people, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you this: you've coached leaders at organizations across a size spectrum. I don't want to talk about size. I want to talk about the thing that's people who seem to get it have. So what do the successful ones, regardless, what do successful ones seem to get about growth that others miss, no matter how large or small their organization is?
They figure out what they're good at. Like a lot of cases, there is a thing that you can do that nobody else in your business can do, right? One of those is think about your business, right?
Yep.
And there will be a couple others. Maybe you're the best salesperson, the best relationship marketer or whatever. Hang on to that, budget that, make that part of your job, right? Get as much of the other stuff, not necessarily off your plate, because let's go back to that. I know you didn't want to talk about size, but let's talk about a small business for just a second. The owner needs to be treating in order to, pay the bills. Okay. There's a transition, there's over time and size that goes into that, but their mentality is that my first priority is to support my team. And if I do that effectively and well in a structured format with the time allotted, I then have the freedom to go and play on the field. It's kind of the player coach mentality, right?
Sure.
But there's a transition, and then once you have that freedom, you can then choose to do whatever you want. You could run a mentorship program, you could train, do teaching, you could run workshops. You can do what you have the freedom to be creative and do whatever you want. But what they're doing is they're prioritizing, and they're also not ego driven. The ones that really get it are the ones that truly want their players and their patients to succeed. And they figure out, whatever I need to do to make that happen is what I need to do. And then they go forth and pursue that deliberately, intentionally.
Yeah, they understand what game they're playing. I'll give credit to a former sales manager of mine, John Crawford, and he said, "Listen, just make sure," and this goes for everybody in that chart, like manager to frontline to patient. That's a big one. And he of course put it in an analogy. He said, "Make sure that you and the person you're with are playing the same sport. I don't want to be playing ice hockey when the person I think I'm working with thinks we're playing figure skating. I'm scoring goals but getting no points because I'm not doing any triple Lutzes over here." So set those expectations early. That's good communication skills. And if you do that, the big things wind up taking care of themselves.
Well, yeah. And, here's a nugget that everybody can take. What are the top 2 processes that each player on your team operates? And by top 2, I mean the 2 most important things. Like if you have a front desk person, what are the 2 most important things that they do? And, I can go back, and this is actually kind of embarrassing, but we go back 15 years or so. I was talking to somebody about this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go over and ask my front desk that question. Chelsea, what are the 2 most important things you do? You know what she did? She gave me a list of 13 things.
You can't have 2 most important things that are 13 things. That math doesn't math.
Totally. Well, and the problem was that was my business.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, ooh, I have failed. Right. I need to fix this. I'm like, wow. Okay. So yes, all those 13 things are important. They are. However, if you don't schedule new patients, if you don't collect copays, coinsurance, whatever at the desk, none of those other 11 things happen. Right. So that clarity and focus, because at the end of the day, let's say it's 5:45 and she's leaving at 6 and she's got 2 messages from patients and a fax to send, and she's got a whole bunch of competing things. What's she going to do?
Make sure she does those 2
most important things. Right. The other stuff could wait. Like I know that there's an issue with prioritization, but if I'm faxing reports to physicians when a patient needs to be called back, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. But if because I've asked practice owners this multiple times, what are the 2 most important things? If they don't have the clarity around that, if they haven't figured that out, how in the world do their players know?
Yeah.
Right. What are the 2 most important things running back does? Right. If the coach doesn't know the 2 most important things, how in the world does the running back know?
They're just going to pick and they're going to do the thing they want to do. That's when you get people who are like just spinning their wheels. Like, where is this guy? I don't know. Right. Although in their defense, the running back is like, I don't know. I thought block left and run the ball was important. It's like, I know, but we got block right also. Because nobody told me. Right. So I just did stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have chaos. Correct. And you don't have sustainability. And, that's kind of one of those questions on my initial quiz that people can take is, if you left your business for 4 weeks, what would it look like when you got back?
Right. And the answer should be, it would be fantastic when you came back because it's still running as you left it.
Well, here's one. I just had a client leave for 3 weeks. They came back and she's like, you know what? The numbers went up when we were gone and they went back down when we got back.
That's painful, but it's a good sign. It means you did your job 6 months ago well, and that's why you can leave for 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't work here anymore and just let them. And I'm like,
well, paint yourself out of the house, right? Like work yourself out of a job. Sturdy, we're going to do a bonus segment called Marketing Myth or Must. Myth or Must. Are you ready to do this?
Sure.
I'm going to throw you, I think I got 5 things on my list. You're going to tell me if it's a myth or a must, and then you can give me some context if you want for a why. So here's number 1. Sturdy, you have to post every day on Instagram to be successful. Myth or must?
No, it's a total myth, Jimmy. You know that.
Yeah. Why is it a myth, though? I want people to hear from you because I screamed it.
Are you going to believe what I tell you about me or what my clients tell you about me? Right. So, post on Instagram. Yes, you should. Sometimes I even told one of the local places, you had these games going on, you had the special beer for SF Beer Week, and you didn't post anything and nobody knew, right? There are messages that you want to get out there and tell people.
Sure. Awareness.
But wouldn't it be better if your customers are posting pictures and stuff and reviews and all that kind of stuff? And by the way, the reviews are another form of leverage word of mouth. About 4 years.
It's word of mouth that's going to stick around for a while.
Well, that's what, 4 years ago or so, I took a picture of a park. We went to a soccer match. There were no pictures, nothing on it on Google Maps. And I get a report every 6 months or something. I think over 500,000 people have seen my photo and my rating on the park. Yeah, I mean, where else in the world can I affect thousands of people or get my message out, right? Just on Google Maps, 5 stars, here's a picture, you can bring your dog, this is what it looks like. My picture's the cover picture for that park. I mean, doesn't benefit me, but imagine if that park was a business.
Right. What would that look like? Yeah. No,
Right.
I think posting when you have something good to say for the audience, beating
Right.
your own
Oh, yeah.
chest is not a reason to post. I mean, it's not a reason to post, right?
It doesn't usually work, although.
Second up in marketing, myth or must. If you're not running Facebook ads, you're falling behind. Myth or must. If you're not running Facebook ads, you're falling behind.
It's a total myth. And what I would urge people to do, this is another thing I had on my list that we didn't talk about, is if you're paying for advertising, track the number of leads and conversions, figure out how many new patients you're getting from that advertising, and calculate that against the, not just money, but the time and effort, energy that you're putting into it. But
yes.
Right. But then calculate your customer acquisition cost. And I'm saying this because I was about to onboard a client. I don't even know why we were doing P&L before they were actually signed up, but I looked at their P&L, and a $1.2 million business, they had $76,000 in advertising.
Wow.
And I said, why? And they're like, well, because we bought from this, big name group that does and we do our Facebook ads and workshops and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, here's how you calculate a customer acquisition cost, And to their credit, he had already been tracking, the owner had been tracking. So he had the number of leads and he had the number of new patients generated. But I still remember the numbers, Jimmy, because he had 97 new patients over the past year for that $76,000, which meant there was a customer acquisition cost of $783.
Oof. That is, you are not going to stay afloat if you're spending $700 to get one patient.
Well, that's what we broke down. I'm like, dude, you're literally seeing 4 more patients to pay the advertising company.
Yeah, it's not
that you're generating.
No.
No. So that was always my thing in the practice. I'm like, if I could find a reliable, repeatable channel to to get new patients for $50 or less per patient, I would sign up and pay that all day long. But that was a product of my profit margin and what I knew we could sustain and do. Never found it outside of the relationship marketing, word of mouth and stuff.
Number 3 out of 5, referral marketing is dead. I think I know which way you're going to go. Is that a myth or a must? Is referral marketing dead?
It's a total myth. It's still people, right? And again, all these people are going to their doctors or to urgent care or whatever for their musculoskeletal stuff. And you're a great resource. It's a huge opportunity. And by the way, the fact that myth is out there, that it's dead, makes the playing field wide open for you.
Yeah, bar's low. All right, this next one, I know which way you're going to go, but I'm going to throw it anyway. I had it written before we started talking. SEO, search engine optimization, is more important than patient experience. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you what the answer is.
Yeah, I mean, put that, yeah, sure. Do that for any business, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're selling cars. Which is more important, the driver experience and word of mouth or your SEO ranking?
Yeah, that's a lob. And the final one, hire a marketing agency and you're good to go. You don't need to do anything else. Myth or must?
Oh, anybody you outsource to. This is another one that gets me because and by the way, part of the reason it gets me is I did this, right? I made this mistake. You hire an outside contractor for something and you expect them to do it. You still have to manage it. You still have to create the clarity. Yes. You have to lay out expectations. You have to set up, like, what does success look like? You have to monitor and work on it together. Even if it's your accountant or bookkeeper, there's got to be clarity around what exactly you want done. And, you meet with them regularly and you make sure what what needs to get done is getting done, and what do you need from me to make sure it gets done?
Yep.
So,
all right, last thing we do. Yeah, you're right. Last thing we do on the show is the parting shot. What's the last thing you'd want to leave with the audience? What's your mic drop moment for this particular episode?
I'm not sure after the talk is that profound, but just don't get taken advantage of.
Oh.
Roll your sleeves up, get uncomfortable with the numbers, and get some help from somebody who can actually go through the important ones. And get into a little bit of managerial accounting. By the way, Matt is my co-author and collaborator on these things, and he's in New Zealand. And in New Zealand, the accountants and bookkeepers do managerial accounting, meaning they're looking at the ticket price and how many transactions, and helping you with numbers that help you make decisions. And I'm like, yeah, nobody here does that.
Yeah.
Big companies do it,
sure,
but your CPA and others are not going to do it. So you have to figure out a way to get that done for yourself.
Yeah, because if you're not going to do it, like we said, in your business, if you're not doing it, no one's just going to show up and start doing it for you. Sturdy Coaching, is that where you want to send people? SturdyCoaching.com?
No, now it's the 6hourceo.com.
I like that.
That's the new,
I haven't seen the new site. I'm going to go check. I'm going to take a look. Is it SIX?
So, nope, 6hourceo.com. Yeah, that's it. It's not even quite done, but you know what? That kind of goes back to our whole premise of good is, it can't be, it doesn't have to be perfect. So it's a starting point. We'll get it up the rest of the way, but yeah, 6hourceo.com with the 6.
Sounds great. Perfect. All right, Sturdy. I always enjoy these conversations. I think you put a lot of really, really, all you do is say basic stuff, man. Shouldn't you say fancy? I like the basics. Get the basics, do the basics well. The fancy stuff, the basics are the fancy stuff.
You know what? Most businesses, unless you're doing something completely different that's never been done before, the vast majority of business you're playing an execution sport. Yeah. You're playing baseball, right? You're not doing something totally new. You're trying to do it better than anybody else. And yeah, it should be pretty simple. That doesn't, by the way, just like baseball, that doesn't mean it's easy, right?
No, simple is
the
not
idea
easy.
of hitting is simple. Put the bat on the ball. Execution is not.
Agreed.
But
Sturdy, thanks so much for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jimmy. Take care.
You ever wonder how those rock star clinicians seem to just know what to do? Like they've got a sixth sense in clinic. Well, here's the secret. Brooks IHL. Their residency and fellowship programs for PTs, OTs, and SLPs are where clinical skills meet elite mentorship. We're talking 150 hours of one-on-one mentoring, lab training that's immersive, and real-world experience inside Brooks Rehabilitation's top-tier system of care. And unlike some programs where you have to put your career on pause, Brooks IHL pays you a full salary while you level up. Their grads consistently outperform national board pass rates, and most of their mentors, they've been through the program themselves. If you're serious about being a clinical expert, this is the move. Go to brooksihl.org and check out all 10 program tracks. The next level of your career is waiting at Brooks.